raising kids who would have time and money and freedom.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Lindy.
Hey, Chris.
I had a thought. You should be working to retire. And my wife hates this thought. She thinks it's everything that about it is wrong. That you should be working and doing what you love. And if you're not doing that, then you should be figuring out a way to do what you like doing now and not worrying about a future, kind of future free time. And so kind of to like just flesh out this idea a little bit, my thought is two things. Time is the same now as it is in the future. There is no discount factor to it. So with modern medicine, with our average life expectancy, all that kind of stuff, you can be fairly certain that a minute now is basically the same as a minute at least 10 years out from now, and probably the same even 20 to 30 years out from now. And then the other half of it is that people don't value time enough. And so they do things now when they should be working that they are not doing in order to free up time in the future, because I think there's some kind of either compounding interest or exponential return to work. That the work you do now can build on itself such that you get more free time out of it in the future. And so if time is the same now and in the future, and doing work now increases your amount of free time in the future, you should only be working to retire right now.
I guess my question is, isn't everybody doing that? Doesn't everybody have that expectation that they're going to retire at some point and are working toward that in a sense of making money, essentially not necessarily making enough money to retire, but working until they retire, which I guess is not what you're saying. You're not saying work until you retire. You're saying work to retire, meaning allocate as many resources as possible.
Allocate as much resources as you can possible to retiring. Plan your spending around retirement. So do I really need this thing now? That is that worth free time later? And then are the things that I'm doing at work leading to a future in which I don't have to work?
So by this argument, you would say you'd get a job where you you make as much money as possible so you can retire as soon as possible.
Correct. And you also do things even outside of work that enable you to retire faster too. So everything that you're working on in life at a relatively young age, or like as a younger person, should be with the goal of having being able to stop working so that you can have as much free time as you possibly can later.
So taking the non-extreme version of what you said, you're just basically saying have a good financial understanding of how things work and don't spend money egregiously and be smart in your everyday life, right? So, which arguably most people don't do.
Correct.
So that's the non-extreme version. The extreme version, which is the more interesting one to me, is kick your own ass until you have enough retirement money to not have to work again by the time you're 40 or 45. So have no life, have zero life, and drive yourself crazy until you can just retire and spend not the last 20 years of your life retired, but the latter half of your life retired.
Correct. Yeah. And so I don't even necessarily have to kick your own ass to do it, but you, as part of your retirement planning, should be considering the things that optimize towards that. So it isn't just put money in a 401k. It's things like, does this job have a career ahead of it that increases over time? Does going on this trip where I spend $1,000 drinking, is that worth it? So the other big thing is time value of money, right? So $1 today, if you can invest it at more than inflation, is worth more tomorrow. So things like that, where you can trade certain experiences that aren't going to be lasting impacts on your life necessarily for free time in the future. This is not like this is contrary to like live in the moment. It's kind of so right. The underlying concept is almost that all moments in your life are equal. And so maximize the time of what you can actually do what you want to be doing.
So here's my argument against you. You're kind of like overvaluing what life would be once you're retired. So you're kind of saying that can like balance out the horrible now because it's going to be so great then. And I would argue you can have every moment be great if you're living your life the right way.
So working hard doesn't mean necessarily like I think I to a certain extent am living the thought where up until like Friday, very frugal with basically everything in my life.
Up until
I
Friday?
don't want-
Wait, can we pause and explain this?
So the one thing in life that I've wanted besides my son was a Tesla, and I was finally able to buy a Tesla on Friday.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
You're now
yeah, but that's actually
an old white person.
well. I mean, I've been an 80-year-old trapped in a 30-year-old body for a very long time. But now I'm embodying that fully. But now the thing is, like, I literally don't want anything else in the world. I don't want a new TV. I don't want a new phone. I would probably like a new computer if this one dies. But besides my computer and my car, I don't want anything. I have now achieved like pinnacle life. And so I just want to start podcasting every day and not going to work and just like hang out with friends as much as I could and like family.
So you could retire right now then, by that argument.
So I should retire right now. The one issue is I don't have enough money to continue the quality of life that I have going.
It kind of sounds like your idea of this work to retire idea is compatible with you because you don't, as you said, you don't have any particular wants or desires past the ones you already have, aside from eating food and whatnot, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The little stuff.
And not going to Colorado. So that's an inside joke.
I think if you were to try and teach this, it seems like it's kind of a slippery slope into turning somebody into a neurotic person about how they spend their money. We already kind of have these neuroses about other things in our life, more specific things like eating or exercise, where people, they think in that way, where they say any dollar that you spend now is whatever, $10 that you're subtracting from the future. So in a way, you could apply that thinking in a bad way, where any calorie that I eat now is 15 minutes off of my life at the end, right? Or any push-up that I don't do now is some sort of terrible thing that'll happen to me in the future. And so because it's compatible with you, it works, but it could be a slippery slope into neuroses where you're not necessarily better off at the end of this road.
What you did there was make me realize I should start exercising. So like that's a very good argument for that. So I think it's probably a form of stoicism. So, and it's also probably a form of like white privilege. I could actually realistically retire. Basically, I've not spent my way into retirement already. But that's only because I was given like a shit ton of privilege up until this point to be able to do that. So I got, right, talking about good genes and good parents. I had those. I got lucky a lot. You can increase your surface area for luck, in my opinion, but you still have to you have to be open to the opportunity to get lucky. And I got lucky several times already. I worked hard as best you can, given those advantages. I did work hard, but I'm still in a framework where I was given those advantages to work hard in. So I feel like I've maximized to a good extent, like the privileges afforded to me, to the point where I can like espouse this theory, right? But on a more like practical level, I don't know if neuroses would be where I go with it, but I think it would be a form of stoicism where it's just like I'm going to be disciplined in this way such that because I know that the benefits outweigh the current costs. Long-term benefits outweigh the current costs, which makes you right that I should start exercising more than I am. And
well, and that is the healthy version of what you said. But humans tend to be varied in how they approach different techniques like that. And so
I got to become a vegan too, is what you're telling me. This is the worst day of my life now.
Well, you're on your way. You already had a fake Whopper.
That's true.
And I've been doing this. Yeah, I've been doing intermittent fasting now. Is this new thing where you don't eat for 16 hours straight? Trying to lose. So
that sounds like a bad idea, not a good idea.
I think you got it switched around. I think you eat for 16 hours and then you don't eat for the remaining 8.
Well, so again, it comes back to I'm trying to fit in a suit for my brother's wedding. I'm trying to save like a couple $100, and so the way you do that is by losing. I got to lose like 5 pounds, and so I'm just forcing myself not to eat for 16-hour stretches.
I want to go back to the going to work out idea and encourage that one.
I gotta do both. But right, it's actually, I think it's a good point, right? I'm almost being hypocritical in my stance if I'm not doing that kind of stuff, which is kind of the opposite of Lindy's. Like I think you're bringing up the fact that by doing something, you're hurting yourself in the future.
Yeah. Like if you're going to say you're going to save money to, be able to not work in the future, you also need to be willing to work out and take care of your body and watch what you eat and all of those things. So I will say, as someone who's currently not working, it is a lot easier to exercise when you don't work. Like as soon as I stopped working, I've been running or like walking a few miles every single day.
You're almost like living my dream right now, right? Like you have no responsibilities for,
I have a dog.
like the time being. Well, okay. Minor responsibilities, but you almost have complete freedom at this point.
I do have pretty much complete freedom. And the thing that's interesting is I've kind of taken this a direction of, honestly, I think similar to what you would do, which is I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just living my life the same way I did before, just a better version of it. And I think that's kind of what it sounds like you're looking for from retirement. It's you want to keep living the life you're living just without the work part.
What's better about your unlimited, no responsibility free time, minus the dog?
I just think I'm much more mentally present and mindful when I'm around other people. So when I work, I am always thinking about work in the back of my head. I'm always thinking what could happen, what I need to do next. Now I'm just living my life in the moment, and every single moment is a great opportunity to experience something with other people or by myself. And I just feel completely like open to the world in a way that I never was before.
If I were to stop working and was able to continue my life the way that it is right now, I think I would go a little crazy. That's not to say that Chris, you would sit on the couch all day, or that Lindy, that you do sit on the couch all day.
I am sitting on the couch right now, so
yeah. Well, and this is a pretty long podcast, but the idea being that you would fill your time with things that you wanted to do that weren't watching TV, that weren't passive,
yeah.
Right? But the idea for me, even when I think of my time being spent in that way, where it's only things that I wanted to do that were productive and active, I still think I'd go a little crazy, because there's something about contributing to something that is a criteria of being productive for me. So I'm a musician. If I were to just sit in a room and write music all day, and even if I had the means to record it with an orchestra or record it with a live band or whatever, I still think it wouldn't be enough for me, because it needs to be a part of something for me to find value in it. So I write music for film and television. And so for me, a big part of that is contributing toward a goal or a work of art, or just a work or something for people to enjoy. There's something to that. And I like the camaraderie of working with other people and so on. And so that would go away, basically. I would still need to be contributing to something that you might only be able to find in a working environment.
I understand exactly what you're saying. And that's the thing I miss the most. I'm about 4 months in on not working. And in the last week, I've started to feel a lot of that feeling disconnected from having a purpose. But I almost feel like it's almost like we think we're too important by virtue of feeling like we need a purpose that's like that. It's almost like every time I think it, I kind of come back around to, but maybe my purpose is just existing and interacting with other people and being a community member.
I think a sense of purpose is individualized.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be whatever it's going to be. That is sort of speaking to whether Chris's method of retirement or working for retirement is compatible with everybody. I mean, is it compatible with everybody? I mean, I think that there are people who like their lifestyle in the sense that they make a certain amount of money, they spend that amount of money, maybe they're putting something away for retirement, but they love to go out and eat, or they love to go to the Philharmonic, and all of these things can be expensive. And so in their minds, they're not trading anything off. They're experiencing life the way that they want to experience it. So if you were to tell those people, you can't go to the Philharmonic for the next 40 years, but when you go, you can have the best seats ever. So I don't know if that would be a attractive trade-off to those people.
So the people that are doing that style of living still need to figure out they're constrained by their income, and so they still need to figure out what they can and can't do. And the part of the retirement in my head is this magical time where there is no constraint. You have yourself and time, and you can do what you please. So that some of that, I guess, some of my thought is like a lot of stuff that I want to do doesn't have money. There's no cost to it. It's more just people and time. And so retirement is the ultimate source of that time to go do the things with the people I want to be doing them with.
I think part of this perspective from Chris also comes from a place that I've always seen him as a pretty content and he gets his contentment from somewhere internal instead of somewhere external. And I think what this might be coming up against is that for people where their excitement comes more from external things, this would be a much more difficult idea. They don't necessarily want to retire.
That was the nicest way anyone's ever called me a hermit before that I've experienced.
I'm the same way, so I understand.
My brother came from the same exact place, and he's almost like the polar opposite of me. Like he works hard, he makes a shit ton of money, but he spends that money. He wants things, right? Like that's part of him. And so, right, like it's not all upbringing, I guess, but he's also much more of a real human than I am. Like he has friends and does things.
I think this brings up an interesting point, though. You saying you're a hermit and your brother is social. Spending money is often a very social thing. It's about doing things with friends. It's about having social indicators that show how successful you are. It's a very social thing. It has meaning in the sense of how you relate to other people. And maybe Chris and my interest in not spending money has to do a little bit with us being more introverts and more hermits because we aren't in those social situations like getting drinks. You spend tons of money when you get drinks with people or going out to dinner or all of those things.
I think a really good expression of your method, Chris, is, or the opposite of your method, is sports people, professional sports people. They're called athletes. Think of the word.
Thank you for saying it. I was like, sports people? Yeah.
Those are what musicians call athletes. Sports people.
I couldn't think of that word. So there are many examples of them making tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in their 20s. And then they're broke by 35. And so that is a perfect antithesis of your idea, right? And what can happen and the terrible things that can happen with not managing your money properly.
And the big thing is too, so this is probably again part of like the privilege I was talking about earlier and just growing up, wealthy and to do, was that if I wanted something when I was a kid, I not more or less got it, but like, right, if I wanted to go get the new video game that came out, I could go get it on my birthday or go get it as like a gift or something. And so I've learned that like those things don't do it for me like long term. Like it's just not a source of happiness. And like so like things people, but when you don't have things, I imagine that makes you want those things because you've never been able to have them before. And so I've been in the situation where like I could have had that stuff and I've realized I don't want it, which is like not something most people can say. Yeah.
I would imagine for people who work until they no longer have to work anymore, and that's their criteria for retirement, I would imagine when they eventually retire that it's sort of like a vacation at first. It's like an extended vacation. And then when they have no plan on what they want to do, they're just not working anymore. I wonder what that does. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are perfectly fine with it. And I wonder how many other people are bored or feeling unproductive or depressed. So, Chris, after having talked about it, is there anything you'd like to revise or amend to your original?
I think I would keep it more or less the same, but with everyone, I think we've raised some good points that retirement is different for everybody, and that you should be working to figure out what that retirement is for you, and then try to achieve that. And so, if retirement for you is all of that stuff that requires a bunch of money and spending money, that you probably still shouldn't do it until you're old, but you should. Yeah, no, my thoughts stayed the same. I just realized that I'm an old